So the Oklahoma Sooners, they have a wild weekend in terms of the spring game visitors for those recruits. Going to be really exciting. We got a lot of elite players on campus this weekend. I think a total of 3 5-stars. Yes, as Topher is mentioning here, a lot of crystal balls and predictions dropping for OU football and basketball. We're not talking about basketball, but we are talking about football. And yeah, we're here to talk about it. So before we dive into the list, go ahead, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Over under 3 commitments this weekend. Over or under 3. So Brent Venables, Todd Bates, and the staff, they're doing it. They are bringing a list available to us of recruits that are going to be on campus to watch not only Kyler Murray and his statue be immortalized as a Heisman winner, which if you're a quarterback and you're going to be on campus for that, there's got to be some chills because you could be in that position down the road. Maybe a running back. I don't know if Oklahoma is going to get a Heisman winner at a wide receiver. I think maybe our best bet was D.D. Westbrook that year, and still D.D. Westbrook would have had to put up a little bit more on those numbers to be able to win it. But definitely any quarterback in attendance that sees the Kyler Murray statue and sees the ceremony that will be put up for Kyler Murray, that has to go into their minds a little bit thinking that could be me one day. And you look at this list and you just look at the 5 stars. David Stone, who I think a lot of us would expected to have been on campus for OU spring game, especially since this is the year that David Stone's coming out. I expect him to be on campus. Then you had Dominic McKinley, another defensive lineman who kind of has came out of left field for a lot of people. And this one's going to be exciting because, well, we've talked about so often Williams Nwaneri, David Stone as options. We even talked about Nigel Smith, who we say is 5-star talent and hopefully will be a 5-star by the end of the cycle. Well, if you land a guy like Dominic McKinley, could there be the possibility that OU lands 4 5-star defensive linemen by the end of the cycle? Now, a lot of this is premature because, like I said, Nigel Smith's not a 5-star. So we're under the assumption Oklahoma lands Nigel Smith and he becomes a 5-star. Also, under the presumption that Dominic McKinley will stay a 5-star. So we got to keep all of that in mind. But just outside of the defensive linemen, they also have Bryant Wesco, who just earned his 247 5-star status. And if you're saying why 247, I think 247 has the best evaluators in the country. On 3, I think it's starting to catch up, but 247, when you look at how those guys are graded, you look at the evaluation that they put out, I 100% agree with everything that they say. But like I said, on 3, they're on the come up. And actually, I kind of like the way that on 3 structures their site where you can see visits and things like that. But that's a conversation for another day. When you look at the 4 stars, well, you've got your commit, Michael Hawkins. You've got Caden Durham, who everybody believes is going to be a commit for the Sooners here pretty soon. Offensive line, Casey Poe. Now, I personally will tell you, I don't think Casey Poe is going to commit probably till June. So I don't want OU fans to get too ahead of themselves. This is probably going to be an Alabama-Oklahoma race here, is what it looks like right now. But I would not expect that commitment to come down until June. I'm going to be honest. From a guy that talks to Casey Poe, if it happens before June, I'm going to be a little shocked. So just putting that out there. Wide receiver Zion Kearney, that's going to be an interesting one. Is he preparing to wrap up his recruitment? Pretty much looking to, I guess, take just an official to Oklahoma? Because if you're any of these recruits and you wrap up your recruitment early, you're not taking officials anywhere else. So something to keep an eye on. Wide receiver Zion Kearney, I think he's a top 50 player, or I know he's a top 75 for sure. And Zion Kearney is going to be a dude at the wide receiver position, especially if you're able to pair him with Bryant Wesco, just because of his size alone. But then you've got wide receiver Nick Marsh going to be on campus. You have edge rusher Christopher Jackson, who currently has no visits to the Oklahoma Sooners yet. He's taken 3 to Clemson, and Nick Eason. We've talked about Nick Eason on this podcast before, a great successor to Todd Bates. You know, that was a huge loss for Clemson when they lost Todd Bates, and they were able to easily replace him with Nick Eason, who was just in the waitings underneath him. You've also got Logan Thomas, the talented four-star edge rusher that has actually been to OU, been to Tech 3 times, been to A&M once, friends with David Hicks from Paytow, Texas. Now, Paytow High School in Katy, Texas. I am going to say, though, personally, in my opinion, I would lean a little more A&M on that side. Now, with OU getting another visit, maybe that there's something there. But ultimately, I'm going to say, hey, he's friends with David Hicks. David Hicks is at A&M. That's probably where that goes. But if Oklahoma gets it, that is just gravy on top of the biscuits. You've got guys like Joseph Jonah Ajonye, who OU fans, you really want him. I've heard you guys in the comments. I've seen your guys' comments. You guys like this kid. And I would think that Oklahoma's in a really good position because, listen, in conversations with Joseph, and I don't think he would get mad if I said this, he already knows where he wants to go in terms of the conference, which I bet we can all assume is the SEC. And I would assume if he's got it figured out with the conference, he's probably got it narrowed down between 2 or 3 schools. So I would assume that recruitment is about to wrap up here pretty quickly. You've got Nigel Smith going to be on campus. We've actually went back and forth. It looks like that's going to be an Ohio State-Oklahoma battle. Right now, it probably sits about 50-50. Some people will tell you it's more of an Oklahoma lean. I'm just going to be honest. To me, it sounds like more of a 50-50 battle at this exact moment. But with Nigel Smith being able to get on campus this weekend, maybe that gives Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis and these guys to get their foot forward back in that recruitment and make sure that they continue to stay the leaders there. You've got Eli Bowen, the brother of Peyton Bowen. Why has this commitment not dropped yet? I don't know, but I am not going to lie. I was talking to one of his teammates who just went to the University of Alabama, and I was like, please don't take Eli Bowen from us because, listen, that's one of the guaranteed guys that we pretty much have marked down on our list, so don't take him with you to Bama. But looking at the defensive back, Marquise, I believe his last name's Gallegos? Hey, you know what? We're going to be fine with the defensive back and whoever we get in this class. I don't think it needs to be a super big class when it comes to safeties and cornerbacks, just because it was so deep in 2022 and 2023 that I think we're going to be just fine if we only take 3 or 4 guys when it comes to the safeties and the cornerbacks in this class. And I think you probably got 2 out of the 4 spots. No, 3 out of the 4 spots narrowed down right now. I think there's one that's maybe up in the air. But we'll have to see how many guys that Brandon Hall and Jay Valai decide they want to take, because if a guy like KJ Bolden wants to come to University of Oklahoma, you've got 4 guys in that room, you're going to find a roster spot for that kid. You've also got the safety Jaden Hardy, who, again, you're hearing is potentially going to be a Sooners commit. Michael Boganowski. This one intrigues me a little bit because I really thought Oklahoma would take 2 linebackers in this class. One of those being Peyton Pierce. I had him locked at the beginning of the year when I dropped prediction videos. That's still a possibility that maybe a flip could come. Maybe Peyton Pierce decides down the road that University of Oklahoma, Brent Venables, that's the relationship that he wants to go with. Anything can happen. I think he still has the official visit with the Sooners set up. So all eyes are peeled on that recruitment. The question is, if we somehow get Sammy Brown and a Peyton Pierce flip, is Michael Boganowski still a take? If I'm Michael Boganowski, I'm going to probably try to get in now so that I can secure my scholarship spot, because if I'm already got the scholarship spot there and Sammy Brown and Peyton Pierce want to come to Oklahoma, they're getting scholarships. They will make room for both of those guys. Additionally, you have a safety Michael Patterson McDonald, best friends with David Stone, and one that I think a lot of Sooner fans expect to end up in Oklahoma. Isaiah Autry, offensive lineman, who actually is set to drop his commitment tomorrow. Keep an eye out here on the channel for a video on that one. And listen, you've got a list of 2025 guys. Obviously, you have some of your 2023 guys that committed, like Taylor Wine, Samuel Masigo, Logan Howland. Logan and I went back and forth. He's excited to be here on campus this weekend. So in terms of the recruiting trail, I am not worried at all. This is going to be a big weekend. There are actually going to probably be a couple surprises on campus this weekend. So if you're going to the game, you might want to keep an eye out for these recruits. If you go to section 36 and you look straight down, they normally sit in section 36 in that lower half of the bowl right towards the field. So if you're looking for recruits, you want to see who's there, that's where I would go to look for them. Don't go bother them, but you can at least kind of see who's there and see who's interacting with who. So let's jump into some of the comments here. Topher says McDonald, Autry, Hardy, Wesco, and or Kearney would commit. He's giving the over here. Love it. He says also, I knew Parker Thune put out a hot take last night on another name, a big name. Yeah, I actually have not got a chance to watch their show yet because I went to the Elevation night last night here in Oklahoma City. It was a great night. So I was not able to watch it, but I will get a chance to watch that tonight. So Weston agrees with Topher driving home. Hey, glad you were able to join us. And listen, we will have a lot of content. Weston says, David Stone, Levi, Jeremy Lamb, thank you for your service. Parker's hot take, not mine. I meant to put Joseph Ajone on my list too. Man, Topher, so you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 recruits. 6. So you're wanting to double the over with 6 recruits. 6 recruits. Cole's taking the over as well. So, fun little exercise here. We actually did this the other night on just a random live stream because I was bored, but we actually went through the class calculator and said, okay, if Oklahoma lands these guys, what is it going to look like in terms of a composite score ranking? So, what I did is I pulled up the class calculator earlier, right before we hopped on, and I entered just a few names here. And this is the score that I came out with, 193.07. Now, this is not, I want to preface this now. I am not saying these guys are committing this weekend, but I'm just saying best case scenario. Let's say all of these guys commit. What is that going to look like? Well, obviously, I'm adding Bryant Wesco in there because we've seen the crystal balls flowing from him. OU is heavily favored here. Bryant Wesco might be a guy that's ready to wrap that recruitment up, especially before the football season hits. You've got Zion Kearney on there, Joseph Jonah Ajonye, Caden Durham, Jaden Hardy, Eli Bowen, and Isaiah Autry. That's where I would get the 10 commits from. And at that point, you would put OU at a 193.07 composite score. Hey, you know what? Going into May and June, where June you would have your Champion barbecue with 10 commits, I'm okay with that. That's some traction. Now, I know some of y'all said David Stone the other day, if he popped off, what would that look like? Well, let's just add David Stone to this list because I've seen some of you guys on Twitter say, wouldn't it be cool if McDonald and David Stone committed at the same time? Calculate that. 213.14 with 11 commits. So what does that look like in terms of team rankings? Where would that put the Sooners? So we're going to go ahead and pull that up at the current moment. I should have already had that up. 213 would put Oklahoma at number 2. At number 2 on the composite list. So if for some reason Oklahoma goes out there and lands 8 guys this weekend, Oklahoma's number 2 on that, or number 3 on that list, number 3 on the team rankings. So something to be excited about. Recruiting is hot for Oklahoma. You just haven't seen the recruitments actually pop off yet. I know that there are a couple that are they're just in the waiting at the moment. The question is, I know people are saying, wouldn't it be cool if David Stone committed? I don't think David Stone commits this early. I would think David Stone would want to take his official visits, but you never know with that kid. He's been playing everybody for a long time. Maybe he is ready to wrap it up, and he just wants Mamba to let him commit to the University of Oklahoma. Eric, you said Zadavian Sims. I think Zadavian Sims commits to OU. I think it's a little bit different, though, than David Stone because Zadavian Sims isn't the 5-star. So I think for Zadavian, he's probably going to want to take at least 5 official visits, which the NCAA changed the official visit rule, and these recruits can take as many as they want now. So the school, I think, can only get 1, and I think they still have time limits that they can spend with the kids on those officials. But I think the kids can take as many as they want now. But Xadavian Sims is a guy that I would see for sure taking at least 3 to 5 official visits, really trying to make sure he knows where he wants to go, because Xadavian Sims is a guy that really could start, but with the depth that Oklahoma could be taking at the defensive line this year, maybe he doesn't see himself playing right away. So maybe he decides to really evaluate his options elsewhere. I still think he ends up in the class, but I think it's not going to be as quickly as some of the other guys decide to make their commitments.